I never wanted revenge. All I wanted was fairness. A little acknowledgement for the years I gave that company. But life has a strange way of showing you who people really are, especially when you're at your weakest. I'd been with the firm for 11 years, a construction company, medium-sized, corporate enough to have boardrooms and HR, but small enough that everyone knew who actually made things run. That was me. I wasn't management, not exactly. I handled compliance, safety, paperwork, the kind of boring, invisible work that kept projects from getting shut down. My name wasn't on the walls, but my initials were on every permit, every inspection pass, every clean audit for a decade. And I did it all under one man, Robert Lang. Robert was slick, one of those middle-aged executives who could make a 5-minute pep talk sound like a TED Talk. Expensive suits, white veneers, voice that could sell you your own car back for double the price. He wasn't a bad boss at first, just ambitious. The kind who played favorites, told stories about his vision. I never cared. I did my job, hit every deadline, and let him take the spotlight. Then came that December. I'd just wrapped one of our biggest contracts, a hospital expansion project that came in $400,000 under budget. Robert had promised that if we hit our targets, the bonuses would reflect the effort. Mine was supposed to be 60 grand. I wasn't counting yachts or champagne. That money was for my surgery, heart valve replacement, not cosmetic, not optional. When I handed in the final report, Robert patted my back, told me to take a few days, enjoy the holidays. I went home, told my wife the good news, and scheduled the operation for mid-January. Then the email came. Hi, Tom. Unfortunately, due to current budget restrictions, your year-end bonus has been deferred. We appreciate your understanding. Robert Lang. Deferred. Not canceled, but we both knew what that meant. The company had money. We'd saved money. I'd seen the ledgers myself. The bonus pool had already been approved by finance. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried HR. They told me to address it directly with your manager. And my manager, the same guy who promised me that bonus in front of witnesses, suddenly stopped replying. My wife said, maybe it's just delayed. January's always weird with payroll. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But that sinking feeling in my gut, it wasn't anxiety. It was betrayal. The day before surgery, Robert finally showed up at the hospital. Armani suit, fake concern, a get-well balloon in one hand. I still remember the smell of his cologne mixing with antiseptic. Tom, I wish I could have pushed that payment through, really. It's the higher-ups. Corporate politics, you know? He said it like we were friends, like I hadn't spent the last 3 weeks calling insurance, rearranging my mortgage and asking my brother for help. I remember staring at him, IV in my arm, and thinking, you could have just told me the truth. But he smiled, that same rehearsed smile, squeezed my hand like a pastor at a funeral, and left. The surgery went fine. Recovery didn't. The medical bills hit harder than the operation itself. Every time I logged into my bank account, that missing bonus number burned a hole in my brain. Still, I told myself to let it go, focus on healing. Until one night in February. My buddy Derek, project manager, been with the company almost as long as I had, called me after a few beers. He was laughing about some corporate getaway Robert had bragged about during the staff meeting. Apparently, Robert and 2 senior execs had flown to Aruba in mid-December. Company retreat, he called it, a 5-star resort, all-inclusive, a reward for leadership excellence. Derek mentioned something else, that the accounting line item for the trip matched the bonus pool from our department. Same amount, down to the cent, $60,000. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even tell my wife. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady beat of my repaired heart. He'd used my bonus, the one that was supposed to pay for my surgery, to fund his vacation. For weeks, I told myself it wasn't worth it. People like Robert always land on their feet. I'd seen guys like him climb over others their whole careers and still get promoted. But something inside me shifted that night. Not anger exactly, just clarity. Because here's the thing about paperwork. When you spend over a decade reading contracts, approvals, compliance memos, you learn where every signature goes and where it shouldn't. And Robert had made a mistake, a small one, hidden in the digital trail of that corporate retreat, but enough to hang his career on, and I was the one who filed it. For a while I tried to convince myself I had imagined it, that the trip and the missing bonus were just bad timing. But numbers don't lie. People do. When I finally went back to work in late February, Robert greeted me like nothing had happened. "Tom, you look great, buddy. How's the heart holding up?" He said it loud in front of everyone like he was some benevolent mentor checking on his protege. I smiled, nodded, thanked him, but something in me had gone cold. Over the next few days, I started digging. Quietly. Most employees don't realize how much digital debris they leave behind. Expense reports, travel authorizations, reimbursements, all pass through internal compliance before hitting finance. And guess who managed compliance audits? Me. It took one login to find the entry. Client Development Retreat. Team Incentive, December 11th, 16. Authorized by Robert Lang. Funded under Departmental Performance Bonus Allocation. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. The approval document carried his signature and mine, copied from a prior audit. He'd literally cut and pasted my digital signature onto a fraudulent authorization form. I stared at the timestamp, my cursor hovering over it, realizing that if this ever went to legal, it would look like I'd signed off on that misuse of funds. I felt my pulse spike. For a moment, I thought my heart valve was failing again. The man had stolen my bonus and used my name to do it. I printed the form, tucked it into a manila folder, and locked it in my desk. That night, I wrote an anonymous email to corporate compliance. I attached a redacted version of the file, keeping my name out of it, and explained the misuse of budget funds. 2 days later, HR called me in. I remember the conference room vividly. Pale walls, cold air conditioning, the faint smell of burnt coffee. HR sat across from me, all polite smiles. Robert was there too, pretending to be confused. "We just want to clarify some inconsistencies," the HR rep said, flipping through pages. "It seems your signature appears on an expense form that doesn't align with company policy." Robert turned to me, frowning with perfect theatrical concern. "Tom, I told them there must be a mix-up. I'd never put you in that position." He even reached across the table, patting my arm like he was the victim. I looked right at him and said, "That's not my signature." HR hesitated. "The document was submitted from your login." "Then someone used my credentials," I replied calmly, "and I'd like an audit to find out who." Robert's jaw tightened. "Let's not overreact, Tom. Mistakes happen." Mistakes don't involve digital forgery. For a brief second I saw it, a flicker of fear behind his polished facade. Then he smoothed it over with a practiced laugh. "We'll sort it out internally. No need to escalate this, right?" But HR didn't escalate it. They buried it. A week later, I got an email saying the investigation found no evidence of intentional misconduct. Translation: Robert was too high up, too well connected. The company wasn't going to risk bad press over 60 grand. That night, I sat alone in the break room long after everyone had gone home. The fluorescent lights hummed softly. I stared at the vending machine's reflection and thought about how easily a decade of loyalty could be erased by one man's greed. I could have walked away, found another job, let karma handle it. But karma's slow and I was done waiting. Still, revenge wasn't something you rushed. It needed patience. And then, one afternoon in April, patience delivered. Robert barged into my office, face red, voice tense. "Tom, we've got a problem with the new state contract. Legal's holding it because we're missing a compliance signature. You need to sign off ASAP." He dropped a thick folder on my desk. the company's largest renewal deal in years, tens of millions in value. Who signed it before me? I asked. No one. You're the compliance officer. It needs your authorization before legal can process. I flipped through the pages slowly. My signature line was empty, the same line he'd forged 4 months earlier. What's the rush? The client's deadline is Monday, he said. If it's not signed, we lose the deal. The board's already breathing down my neck. I leaned back. So you need my signature? Yes, he said with that brittle smile. I know we've had some misunderstandings, but let's put that behind us. We're a team. His voice softened, all faux humility. You've always been my right hand, Tom. No one knows this process like you. Let's close this one together. For a man who'd stolen from me, framed me, and let HR gaslight me, he was remarkably confident. I slid the folder back toward him. I'll review it thoroughly before I sign. He blinked. We don't have time for... We'll make time, I said. Something in my tone must have reached him because his fake smile faltered. He nodded, muttered something about trusting my judgment, and left. I waited until the door closed. Then I opened the file again and started reading, line by line, clause by clause. By page 7, I found it, another small but fatal mistake. Robert had already countersigned the deal, claiming pre-approval from compliance. The document was technically invalid without my authorization, which meant if I didn't sign, the contract wouldn't just stall. It would legally void. The deal would collapse, and the fallout would land squarely on him. That's when I realized something simple and beautiful. He'd built the perfect trap for himself. Robert's arrogance was the one constant in our company. He walked like a man who'd never lost a bet, and for years he hadn't. But that day when he handed me that contract, I knew the streak was about to end. I didn't rush. I spent the weekend reading every word of that deal. It was with a major municipal client. Multi-million-dollar renewal, years of guaranteed work. If it fell through, Robert's division would tank, and so would his career. And the best part? My signature wasn't optional. The contract specifically required sign-off from a licensed compliance officer with state certification. There was only one in the company. Me. Monday morning came, and I took my time getting to the office. Robert was already pacing outside my door when I arrived. Tom, there you are. His smile was too bright, his voice too sharp around the edges. You've read it, right? We need that signature today. I set my coffee down, pretending not to notice the sweat on his temples. Yeah, I read it. And? I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. Then slowly, I have concerns. His expression flickered. Confusion, then irritation. Concerns? About what? Section 14C, I said, tapping the file. There's a discrepancy between the client's terms and our internal budget allocation. You signed off on this before compliance approval. That's a breach of protocol. He laughed, forced and brittle. Come on, Tom. Don't get technical. It's all standard. We can fix the paperwork after we get signatures. No, I said calmly. We can't. The color drained from his face just a little. Tom, the board's watching this deal. You don't want to make enemies up there. That made me smile. Robert, I've already got one. He blinked, taken aback, trying to read my tone. Then he leaned in, lowering his voice. Listen, I know things got messy with the bonus, but this contract, and it's bigger than that. We both need this. No, you need this, I said. I'm already fine. He exhaled, his charm cracking around the edges. What do you want? It was almost funny, watching the man who'd once treated me like a replaceable cog, now bargaining like a desperate salesman. What I want, I said slowly, is everything done by the book. I'll need a compliance meeting, documentation from finance, and a copy of your prior authorizations for audit review. He froze. He knew exactly what that meant. Those documents would expose every misuse of company funds, including the one with my forged signature. His jaw clenched. You're not going to pull this crap, Tom. I stood, calm. steady. If you're confident everything's above board, you've got nothing to worry about. He didn't answer, just stormed out, muttering something about bureaucratic idiots. That week, I quietly reached out to corporate legal, not HR, not compliance, the real legal team. I sent them copies of every document Robert had forged or mishandled, with timestamps and metadata. I didn't mention revenge. I mentioned liability. Lawyers don't care about feelings. They care about exposure. And Robert was a walking lawsuit. By Thursday, the walls started closing in on him. He tried to push the contract through without me, submitting it to legal under emergency authority. They rejected it. No compliance signature, no deal. Then the client called, furious about delays. The city wanted reassurance that the contract was valid. It wasn't. Robert started showing up at my office door every few hours, fake smiling through clenched teeth. "Tom, buddy, we're on the same team. Just sign it, and we'll fix the paperwork later." I kept my tone polite. "Once the discrepancies are resolved, Robert." By Friday afternoon, he snapped, slammed my office door shut, his voice low but shaking. "You're screwing me, Tom. You think I don't see it? You're holding this hostage." I met his stare. "You stole $60,000 meant for my surgery. You forged my signature to do it. You tried to make me the fall guy. So no, Robert, I'm not holding anything hostage. I'm just not saving you." He froze. His mouth opened, then closed again. "Where did you hear that?" he said finally, voice cracking. "Doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that I've already reported it. The documents are in legal review." He paled completely. For the first time, I saw the truth. Not the polished executive, but the small, terrified man underneath. He tried one last card. "You think they'll believe you? You're a nobody. I've got people upstairs who—" The door opened. It was Karen from legal. She looked at both of us, her expression unreadable. "Robert," she said, "the board's requesting you in conference room 3. Now." He stiffened. "What's this about?" "Budget irregularities and compliance documentation." He turned back to me, realization dawning. "You set me up." I shook my head. "You set yourself up. I just stopped covering for you." Karen waited patiently as he straightened his tie, pretending to compose himself, but his hands were trembling. He walked out without another word. When the door clicked shut behind him, I finally exhaled. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even relief. Just, quiet. That weekend, word spread fast. Robert had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. By Monday, his company email was deactivated. And me? I got a request from corporate legal for a formal statement. But that was just paperwork. The real justice, the part he never saw coming, was still on its way. Because the investigation wouldn't stop with the bonus or the contract. Once legal opened the books, they'd find everything. Every falsified expense, every kickback, every quiet theft he thought he'd buried. He'd built his empire on signatures. Now, one missing signature was going to burn it all down. For the first time in months, I slept like a man who owed nothing to anyone. No alarms, no guilt, no late-night spreadsheets. Just silence, the kind that feels earned. By Monday morning, the company was buzzing. You could feel it before you even stepped off the elevator. Whispers in the hall, half-finished conversations that stopped when I walked by. People had started looking at me differently, not like the quiet compliance guy anymore, but like someone who'd seen behind the curtain and walked out untouched. Robert's office door was locked. The nameplate was gone. The blinds were drawn like a tomb sealed shut. By noon, the company sent an all-hands email. Effective immediately, Robert Lang has resigned to pursue other opportunities. We thank him for his years of service. Corporate speak 4. He was caught. And he folded. Still, I didn't smile. Not yet. Because the resignation wasn't the end. It was just the surface. The audit was still ongoing, and I knew what was buried beneath it. The forged expenses, the fake retreats, the missing budgets. Robert had left fingerprints everywhere. Over the next few weeks, I quietly cooperated with internal investigators. No drama, no emotion. I just gave them everything. Emails, approvals, timestamps, memos. They didn't need to dig far. He'd built his house of lies on my paperwork, and every line led right back to him. Then came the call. It was corporate legal, the same woman who'd escorted Robert out weeks earlier. Her voice was calm, almost neutral. Mr. Dawson, thank you for your cooperation. The board has completed its review. I thought you'd want to know the outcome before the formal announcement. I leaned back in my chair. Go on. Mr. Lang has been terminated for cause. Multiple policy violations, financial misconduct, and forgery. The matter's been referred to state authorities. For a moment, I didn't say anything. Just let the words hang there, solid and real. Then she added, the board has also approved reinstating your bonus with interest. You'll receive it in the next pay cycle. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a quiet, tired laugh that came from somewhere deep. After we hung up, I sat there staring at the city outside my window. It looked different now, calmer, or maybe I was. A week later, the company held a meeting to rebuild trust and transparency. HR tried their best to sound inspiring. A few people clapped, most didn't. Everyone knew what had really happened. They just didn't want to say it out loud. I didn't attend. I stayed in my office, finished my reports, and watched the afternoon light move across the floor. By the end of the day, my assistant knocked on the door. Tom, there's someone here to see you. It was Robert, or what was left of him. He looked thinner, older. The confidence was gone, replaced by something hollow. He had a folder in one hand, a forced smile on his face. Tom, mind if I come in? I didn't answer, but I didn't stop him either. He sat down like he used to, trying to own the space, but his hands wouldn't stop fidgeting. I wanted to apologize, he said finally, for how things went down. Which part? I asked. He swallowed. All of it. The bonus, the contract, the misunderstanding. I let the silence hang. You forged my signature, Robert. That's not a misunderstanding. He winced. I know. I was under pressure. The board didn't make you steal. I cut in. That was you. He looked at me for a long time, eyes darting around like he was searching for an angle that didn't exist anymore. They're pressing charges, he said quietly. Embezzlement, fraud. I might lose my license. I nodded once. That sounds about right. He exhaled, deflated. You won't testify, will you? I won't have to, I said. The documents speak for themselves. He stared down at the folder in his lap. I just wanted to make it right. If there's anything I can... There isn't. He looked up then, eyes glassy. You were the best employee I ever had. No, I said, standing. I was the only one who ever told you the truth. He left quietly. I didn't watch him go. That night, I drove home earlier than usual. My wife was in the kitchen, humming softly, the smell of garlic and basil filling the air. She turned when she saw me and smiled. That kind of smile that makes the day worth something again. How was work? She asked. Peaceful, I said. And it was. After dinner, I sat out on the porch with a glass of whiskey, watching the light fade behind the trees. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear kids laughing, the low hum of life continuing as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Not just for Robert. For me. I'd spent years thinking. Loyalty meant silence. That being a team player meant swallowing every injustice and pretending it was fine. It's not. Sometimes the quiet ones aren't weak. They're just waiting for the right signature. When the direct deposit hit the next week, I didn't feel triumph, just balance. The universe, finally even, again. I didn't cash it right away. I let it sit there, untouched, for a few days. Then one morning I moved it to a separate account and wrote a check to the hospital foundation that had saved my life. Anonymous donation, $60,000. The exact amount he took. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it signs its name and walks away. And when it does, the silence it leaves behind, That's the real revenge.